let's go ahead and talk NASCAR. So,
More controversy.
more controversy, yes. Let's go ahead and let's see. What do we start with? Let's start with which one do I want to start with? Okay, let's start in order. Okay, so as we all recall, the big point was when Brad Keselowski. Really, the big point of the race was Kyle Busch wrecking with Denny Hamlin, trying to get into fourth, I think, fourth or fifth, and that brought up the caution. Otherwise, we were having a really good last 3 lap race between Keselowski, who everybody thought was getting ready to run out of gas. He was holding up Blaney, and Larson was coming really, really charging. Even though it had been a few laps, he still couldn't get past Blaney. But again, as much as that was exciting, the fact is, it just it was the brickyard for NASCAR. It's like you can't pass, and that's not good. So, yeah. So that really now look. I don't. That's what I know. Some people probably blame Kyle. Like, why are you doing this? There's only you know what's a big deal being fourth or fifth or sixth? I forget what it was, but I don't agree with that. I mean, sure you don't want him to wreck, and I thought that sucked as going for Blaney, of course, but you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if there's going to be like what happened, run out of gas, few restarts, this and that. Kyle theoretically was still saying, so I could still win this race if something happens. So I was okay with him getting a little bit aggressive at that point, but still it sucked because that would have been much better because everything after that is where we had some unnecessary controversy and drama. I'm sure NASCAR was probably pissed at Kyle. Maybe Kyle, that's why Kyle did it. Like,
That's a conspiracy theory.
yeah. How can they screw NASCAR?
3D,
So,
4D.
okay. So, let's take a look at the restart. Now, I'm going to not put audio here. Okay, so let's just do that so you don't hear it. Okay, so pop it in. There you go. All right, so here we go. Now, this is the thing, and I've got to throw this in there. Nobody's really talked about it, maybe because I'm just an idiot. But you know what? I don't want to hear that either. Okay, so here we go. By the way, what you're going to hear or see for these NASCAR Brickyard highlights are all coming from it's a website called the Beating and Banging channel. It's a YouTube channel. I think he does a pretty good job, and I'm giving him credit where credit's due, and we're taking clips from his channel. So check that channel out. So here we go. This is the time where Keselowski, I'm running out of gas. I got to come out. All right. So I got to ask you a quick question on this. So this is Penske. I mean, a former Penske driver. Okay, Keselowski. So he's a Ford. And he basically just fucked his former team and current manufacturer. Well, I'm not sure I'd be pretty happy about that. If I'm, Roger Penske, if I'm that team, if I'm Ford. I mean, you basically just fucked Ryan Blaney by doing that. I mean, just stay out there or don't. But don't do that. That's the worst possible thing you could have done to screw us. So, again, nobody talked about it, but I just thought that was interesting considering, like I said, it's a guy that worked for Penske, and he's just screwed Penske.
It's a fair point of view. Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of opportunity knowing that he was going to be out of fuel. Obviously, a last-second decision shot him right down. It was the worst possible timing, but there's plenty of opportunity. It's a 2.5-mile track to be able to communicate to folks and potentially put your car in a position with the warm-up and cool-down lanes that they've got at that facility to be able to indicate that you're going to peel off. To do it, just a couple of yards before the restart zone there is pretty bad. Left the entire field with giant question marks as to what was going on. Larson certainly took advantage of it.
Yeah, and then this is the other controversy. So we see, let's see, it's not there, but here, that
Right
line.
there.
So that's the line that he jumps. So he clearly jumps the line, even though it's very small. I know some people are like, well, I'm not sure if come on, he jumped it. It was very small. It wasn't as big as Denny Hamlin, even though Denny Hamlin was winning, which we'll get to, by the way, when we're talking about the race that happened at Richmond earlier this year. Ironic that these are the two races that we're talking about. But anyway, so that restart there, again, I mean, there's a lot of inconsistency once again at NASCAR. They probably should have done something with Hamlin back at the Richmond race earlier this year. They didn't. They should have done something here. They didn't. The next time I tell you right now, the next time they get, unless it's Kyle Larson, the next guy that they do penalize for jumping the gun, that guy is going to be really upset. That guy is going to be, and he better be. It better not be anybody I got money on, I'll tell you that right now. So.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Hamlin's from Richmond, very much recall that. This one, it looks like it. And they actually published the data as to when the throttles were hit. And everybody was pretty much right on at the same time. I think so. I guess data wise, probably too small of a margin to call. If you didn't call Hamlin, then you definitely can't call it here. The data doesn't support it. I do think that the confusion as to who actually held control of the field at that time is really what needs to be addressed. And they've got to have some procedures for, if you're the lead, if you're the control car, like if you pit, 10 yards before the restart zone unprompted, like with no warning, then it's got to be some kind of repercussion or protocol to be able to enable the field to have a fair fight. And Kyle Larson just happened to be in the perfect spot at the perfect time. And
by the way, that would have been a monumentally dumb thing for Kyle Larson to do, considering he had put himself in perfect position. There was no way Ryan Blaney was going to beat him anyway.
Yep.
So that would have been a really stupid move by Kyle Larson to jump the gun there, considering he had the inside track. And again, another bad thing about the Brickyard for NASCAR.
Totally agree.
It's just completely unfair if you're on the outside. Okay, so look, I have been saying this for a while as a Ryan Blaney fan. I said this a lot more before he won the championship because I did feel, when he talked about it last year, that I thought that he was getting better with his emotions. He was channeling them the right way. He needed to be more aggressive. He needed to be more tough. And I think that did help him on his way to winning a championship. So I just loved him when he went ahead and really went off. So let's take a listen in case you haven't heard what Ryan Blaney said at the time.
Fucking bullshit. No fucking way that he gets to jump up a row and I get fucked because someone runs out of gas. That's fucking bullshit. That is fucking bullshit, NASCAR, and you fucking know it. Y'all better change something.
He might have jumped the start there.
I don't give a shit. That's fucking bullshit. There's no way they should have let that go green. That's ridiculous. You just gave it to him.
It ain't over.
That's fucking over. I'm on the top. You gonna win from the top? Give it to fucking Golden Boy. Son of a bitch.
I just love that. I'm sorry. I like the little Golden Boy thing there too at the end. That's just awesome. Anyway, so
yeah, I mean, he called it exactly as I did. Like, you've got to have some kind of protocol. There's the entire field is confused, or at least the first three rows that saw Keselowski peel off there. Like, who then is in charge? Like, who's the lead car? Who do you accelerate on? Do you have to wait for the green? Should you take an extra lap, NASCAR, based on the fact that your entire inside row shot up? People who did the choose rule now get screwed as well. So whole host of things to consider there. He's absolutely right.
Okay, and then this is the controversy at the end of the race. Yes, there's more. And so
Yeah.
here we go. Ryan Preece can't get the car started, and they decide. See, look, here's the deal. First of all, Kyle Larson's not getting beat. Okay, so we knew that. All right. Second of all, and I'm saying, like, if they would have just kept it going, I'm okay with that. That's what we want. We want every race. We don't want any race ended under yellow. That's awful. But again, it's just, I don't understand what's going on. I just don't. I don't understand why these are difficult decisions. And this is why fans get upset and they come out with these controversial, say what you want about if they're scripted and all this other, but they leave themselves open to this criticism, NASCAR. That's the problem. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to criticize the people who are being critical, maybe even overly critical. Let them be, because NASCAR is doing a bad job, especially when they basically, when it's over and everybody knows they're wrong, they always say, we're right. It was the right thing to do. It was the right call. I don't hardly ever hear them say, well, oh yeah, we screwed up. I mean, that just doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, that's always been the NASCAR way. It's been an infallible family business since time of inception. And, IndyCar has gone through its fair share of poor race directors. Formula One has had their fair share. And to those series credits, they made changes. And NASCAR makes changes too. But it's the culture within this series that NASCAR is infallible. NASCAR always has the final say in absolutely every single scenario, and they always back one another up in the public eye and the press releases afterward. In an age of transparency, specifically with fans and with all the betting that goes on in relation to these sports, I do think that they should be a little bit more forthcoming in admitting where things are needing improvement.
Yeah, it's and again with Kyle Larson and the lead, and then that's the thing, Yep. And we know I don't think it's done on purpose, not me, but it just looks that way. Okay. Now let's finally get to previewing the race. The main reason I'm sure everybody's here for our preview of the Cookout 400. This is the second Richmond race. So we had a race at Richmond. What was it? March, I believe. So, and that was the Toyota Owners 400.
March 30th. Yep.
And that was Hamlin's win. And we don't have highlights of that, but just recall that was the situation where Martin Truex Jr. dominated. It was his best race of the year. He led 228 laps. He was a lap away from taking the white, and then Bubba Wallace decides to take it out on Kyle Larson, and a caution comes out, and Denny Hamlin comes out of the pits with the lead and jumps the gun, even though he was leading, but he clearly jumped the gun. They didn't call it. And Denny Hamlin went on to win, even though he only led 17 laps to Truex's 228. Larson led 144. Logano finished second. But that was really, Truex didn't know it at the time, but boy, that was his opportunity to get a win and guaranteed a spot in the postseason. Now he's sweating it out. But remember, I was critical of Truex at the time because I didn't think he was upset enough. I think he should have been really, really upset. Not at NASCAR, not at Denny Hamlin, but at Bubba Wallace. That was a situation where, in the old days, a driver would have found out Bubba, and they would have had words, and maybe more than that. He didn't even have words with Bubba.
Yeah, and recall his teammate, Martin Truex's teammate, is Bubba Wallace's car owner, who ended up benefiting too. So, yeah, a whole host of weird circumstances that played into that. But yeah, you were spot on. Hindsight being 2020, very much should have been. He's in good position, with as few races as we have left to go. But still, could have been in a much better position had that not happened.
Yeah, and as far as the NASCAR, the playoff standings, how many more races we have left?
4.
Wow, it's amazing, right? 4
Yep.
races to go.
4 to go before the final 10. Yep.
Yeah, let me see what the playoff. Let's see what we got here. So, let's put the playoff picture in there.
And oddly enough, it's Bubba Wallace who is first on the outside looking in.
Okay, yeah, that's it. 7 points. So there you go. Because Gibbs looks like he's in pretty decent shape, 42 up.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the ones that are in, and yeah, even though Truex is sweating it out, he's in really good shape. He's 108. I mean, I guess the worst case scenario is, which is not going to happen, is 4 new drivers winning. You know, that's not going to happen. But
yeah, I agree. I think after this week, assuming we don't get a first-time winner, I should say, and it's not Truex, I would say we can pretty much count him in.
All right, so Buescher and Chastain, they're the ones that are in really a dogfight. And then you have Bub on the outside. Really, that's what it is. It's a 3-race run right now. Buescher, Chastain, and Wallace. You know, it's not going to be easy for Gibbs to lose the playoff spot, and it's not going to be easy for anyone else on the outside to get the playoff spot, even though Briscoe and Busch are only in 18th and 19th, as you can see, they're way back. So
that's going to take a win for one of those guys, which would completely throw, Ross Chastain out. Bubba Wallace would be even further out at that point. So it's going to take a win for pretty much anybody besides Bubba Wallace that's on the outside looking in right now.
Okay. So now let's just take a look at what the futures look like. So futures, this is from Draft Kings. And Larson and Hamlin and Bell, it's pretty much the same. There's Byron. Blaney is still getting a respectable 8 to 1. I still say it's a really good number for Blaney at this point. Elliott is 10. Reddick is a good number. Logano, I know you've talked about him a few times this season as a good bargain. Truex is now maybe a nice bargain, but he's got to get going. I mean, there's no reason to. But he has time. All you got to do is get hot now. So he has time. And this is the reset. This is a 2-week reset. So this is going to be a big week for drivers that were cold going into the break, because you don't want to start cold out of the break. This is your opportunity to reset and get going. Start your playoff championship run now. And guys like Truex, Logano, and so forth, Keselowski even, Buescher even, Bowman was looking good towards the end there. Gibbs has to get it going. I don't know what's up with Chastain. He's just not really. I'm not sure he's going to make the playoffs, to tell you the truth, the way he's going.
I would agree.
And then you've got the bigger long shots. I mean, Kyle, talk about a reset. We'll see if Kyle
needs a whole new season.
You would think so. Yeah, I think that's where we're at right now. So, all right. So now we've got the race in hand, the Cookout 400. All right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look at.
I know. All right. So let's get into this. So the last 12 winners. Now this is going to be for, again, check out Prime Sports Network. We're going to have the starting lineup video on Saturday, I believe. When's the race on Sunday? Is that a late race?
That's a good question. My
Yes.
guess is
6:30.
Oh, wonderful.
Why is that? What's on? There's no
Another
holiday on
Sunday
Monday.
night. These are fantastic. Yeah. Sunday, 6:30. Love Sunday night races.
Yeah, that's what the hell is that about? All right. Anyway, so I will be on depending on when qualifying is. Again, I'm just guessing that it's going to be on Saturday, whatever. So we'll post that at Prime Sports, and we'll go over this. But the reason I'm referencing that is because that's going to be a good update. Qualifying does not matter very much at Richmond. 10 of the last 12 winners started outside the top 7. 7 of the last 12 outside the top 10. And so what that's telling you is that what you want to see is you want to see a driver that you like not qualify in the top 10, so your odds are more beneficial. And hopefully, even though the top drivers like these guys here no matter what they do, unless they qualify 35th even. But I don't know. I'm sure that's going to matter. These guys are still going to be low, no matter what they qualify. That's just been Vegas, and it's deservedly so, based on what we'll get into how these guys have done at this track. All right. The manufacturers have all been equal over the last 3 races. But Chevy's the one that I think has got the biggest problem, wouldn't you say? They've only won 1 out of 16 at Richmond.
Yep.
1 out of the last 6. 2 out of the last 12. But also keep in mind, one top 6 at New Hampshire and 1 top 12 at Phoenix this year. And those are going to be the 2 tracks that we're also going to look at, even though we have a Richmond race to look at. So it's a little bit different when you've got a race already at the track to look at. That's the biggest handicapping tool right there. What happened at Richmond early this year? Number 1. Number 2, you can kind of throw in, all right, how did they do at New Hampshire and Phoenix? Being that they're both flat tracks, they're both a mile tracks, they're the most similar. And then you could also say Gateway and Iowa are pretty similar too, but we don't have a whole lot going on with Gateway and Iowa as far as, history. So anyway, so you would agree that you're not going to really, Chevy is probably not the way you're going to go this week?
No, Toyota's been very strong here. And I think even if you look to the last race, Toyota pretty much dominated it. Yeah, you had Larson that came out and led 144 laps. But Toyota won. Toyota dominated. So I think it's, this is Toyota. To me, this is a Toyota track. The second choice would be the Fords. Chevrolet, don't highly discount them. It's not like some of the other tracks where they haven't won in forever. But I think, to me, this is a clear Toyota favorite track.
Let's see here. Where did they put it? There we go. See, now, again, they completely disrespect Ford all the time. I just don't understand it. I don't understand it. They've won the championship the last 2 years, and they've also been winning races lately. I don't get this.
It's got to be a numbers game. It's got to be a numbers game because you got so many top Toyota drivers. You got so many top Chevrolet drivers. You have a couple. It's really just Penske and Blaney and Logano there. You could throw in Keselowski and Buescher, but they just don't have the numbers against Toyota and Chevrolet, and I think that's why you get the disparity there.
Okay, so once again, just quickly, you had Christopher Bell winning Phoenix. He led 50 laps there. And Chevy, as I mentioned, only had 1 in the top 12. You also have, at New Hampshire, you have Christopher Bell winning. So this is going to be a little bit of a tip there of probably who you should be picking here. He led 149 laps and won the race. So we won both of those races, Phoenix and New Hampshire. By the way, Chevy just 1 in the top, I think it was 6 there, 1 of the top 6. That was Larson. Okay. So just quickly on the other races, short tracks and the ones that are considered the most similar, Gateway, Iowa. You had Hamlin winning at Bristol, led 163 in the win. You had Byron winning at Martinsville, led 88. And then at Gateway, you had Cindric, of course, stealing that win, leading 53 laps. And then, by the way, Chevy did not have a top 5 there. Toyota did not have they only had 1 in top 14 at Iowa, but that doesn't really matter. Blaney won that race, dominating, leading 201 laps. Okay, so let's go to these favorites here. And look, it's obvious. See, for me, what I'm going to do here is I'm going, all right, well, like we just talked about with Chevy, this is not the week to take Larson when I've got these other 3 dominating looking Toyota drivers at this racetrack. It's just no reason for me to take Larson this week, coming off a win, even though it's been a few weeks. Just not going to do it. Not this week. And by the way, Larson was 14th at Phoenix and 4th at New Hampshire. And he was 3rd, even though, as you reminded the viewers, leading 144 laps from the pole. But still, that was his best finish, so that does matter. But no wins in these 3 situations. Okay, so out of the top 3, I just think Bell's the way to go. I've already put money on Bell this week, and he's not too low, but he's around there. But I think he's definitely worth it. And the only reason he's not too low is because you have Truex and Hamlin. who are equally as good. But Bell is so good here. And plus, I think the reason to go with him is not just because he won Phoenix and New Hampshire, because keep in mind he was 6th at Richmond earlier this year, so he didn't have a great run there. He led 9 laps, big deal. But he's never won there. So it's like in the Cup Series. So it's like he's overdue. That's why I'm like, okay, this is a perfect situation for Christopher Bell. By the way, he has 3 wins out of 5 in the Xfinity Series, leading 457 combined laps. So he dominated in the Xfinity Series here. He's looked good in the Cup Series with 4 top 5s out of 8. That's 50%. Yes, I can add. And by the way, he's coming up for 4th at Indianapolis, which is, even though it's been a couple weeks, he still is on top of his game. Where the other two, Hamlin and Truex, also have equally awesome stats here. Let's remember, Hamlin is still in a situation where he has just 1 top 5 in his last 7, and Truex is in a situation where he doesn't have a top 5 in his last 10. So I just think it just makes more sense to go with Christopher Bell if you're going to be making that pick out of these top 4 drivers.
Absolutely no question. Christopher Bell is the one to go with here. Out of 8 Richmond starts alone, not even considering his success on those other tracks, he's got 6 top 10 finishes, and he only started inside the top 20 at this track, the top 20 3 times, which is just unbelievable. His best finish at this track was a runner-up when he started 21st. He finished earlier this year after starting 29th. He was the biggest mover forward in that race. This week, they also have the option tires, so I think even if he qualifies dead last, he's going to have plenty of options strategy-wise to be able to move forward. So certainly of these 3, Christopher Bell's has to be your guy. Truex still, I want to see if the couple of off weeks, if he's able to make a fresh start. So, give me a discount on him. Maybe I'd consider him. But if he's a favorite, after what he's been doing in the lead up to the break, no, I'm going to go with Christopher Bell. The only spot where you end up with a question, or I guess maybe the first stop where you end up with a question as to which direction to go, would be when you compare Bell and Hamlin. Hamlin has just been so good at this track over the history. He won here, obviously, earlier this year. He has a lot of stuff going his way this season, and based on the way that he's been running, yeah, he had a little bit of a slow streak going into the break, but he's been one of the most, one of the biggest favorites, I should say, pretty much all season from a championship standpoint. He's going to turn up that wick as we get closer to the playoffs here. So certainly Bell's top choice of the top 3. It might be a little bit closer when you throw Hamlin there and compare the top 4.
Yeah, I agree. And the other reason why I also like Hamlin in this situation after Bell is because you're getting 6-1 with Hamlin, which I don't think should be the case. I think Hamlin should be the co-favorite with Bell, and
Agreed.
Truex should be swapped based on. But again, it's all because of how Truex dominated earlier this year. That's it. But he's led over 1,500 laps. Truex has in his career 10 top 5s out of 36 with 3 wins. Swept 2019, and in his last 15 races, 9 of those are top 5s, 3 of those are wins, and over 1,500 laps led during that stretch. So, yes, you know how good he is there. And Hamlin, 19 top 5s out of 35 with 5 wins, and he's led over 2,200 laps. So both of them are definitely, that's why I'm saying it just doesn't really make much sense to go with Larson out of this group. It just doesn't. Not to say Larson can't win it. We know he can, but statistically speaking, historically speaking, he would not be the top pick, or even the top 2, and maybe not even my top 3 out of those 4. Okay, let's go to the next group here. We got Logano, Byron, Blaney, and Elliott. And out of this group, I guess Logano is down from 14-1. So he was 14-1 a few days ago. So people are starting to put a little money on. And Blaney's up. So I like this because I thought Blaney at 10-1 and Logano at 14-1, which is what they were 24 hours ago. It might have been when we did our show yesterday. That's what the odds would have been. But now I think they're better because Logano should be 11 and Blaney should be 12. I don't understand. I know Blaney's red hot, but he's never really done much here. Even though he has had one good run, so it's not like he's been 0 here. That was in 2022 when he led 128 laps from the pole and finished 7th, his best. But other than that, it's all about how well he's doing with 6 top 10s in his last 7, 3 top 5s, and 2 wins. But Logano, he has a couple of wins here. Blaney only has 3 top 10s and 16 appearances. He's never had a top 5. Logano has a couple of wins here. He was 2nd, as we mentioned, in March. And if you look at it over his last 20, 12 of those are top fives, 2 of those are wins, and all 651 of the laps that he's led at this track have all come within the last 20. Didn't have a lap in his first 10 here. Here's the other thing. We talked about this at the Brickyard, and it continues. He's alternating good and bad over his last, I believe, 8 races right now in the Cup Series. So that means if that continues, he's going to have a good week. And what we mean by that is it started, I believe, at Gateway, might have been, or maybe even it could say before that at Charlotte, 14th, 5th, 21st, 6th, 32nd, 1st, 23rd, 5th, 34th. So if he continues that inconsistency, he would have a good run here. So I like Logano because of that out of this group.
Logano's the best for me. Past winner 2 times. He was second earlier this year, qualified inside the top 10. His last 4 races at the track were all 7th or better. Hasn't led laps in the last 3, so that's a little bit of a question mark, but he did lead 222 in his 6th place finish in the fall of 2022. Like you said, that back and forth, it caught me out at Brickyard because I thought he was probably poised to do a little bit better, so I think he was one of my choices. But he's continued on that up and down bounce, so I would predict him being in the top 5. From a standpoint of the rest of the drivers, I think Blaney is somebody you got to consider from a fantasy perspective, because I wouldn't put him in a position to win this week just because he could win, but I wouldn't make him my choice here necessarily, because again, at this particular track, he's really only got a couple of bright spots. The rest of them have been pretty mediocre, but I think the way that he has been running more recently, his frustration from Indianapolis, he's going to come out swinging again. So I think you're looking at a potential top 5 from him. I will see how that all plays out, and he could win. But I think from if you're picking the winner standpoint of these 4, Logano would be the one that I give the edge to, just of his past history and the way that he's been going at this track in particular most recently.
Yeah, I think what I want to see from Blaney is what we said in the beginning is I'd like to see Blaney not qualify all that well, which is very possible, and then maybe he's 18-1 or 20-1. Then I'll throw a few bucks on him to win. Okay, 12-1, can't do it, but maybe if you get lucky with the qualifying numbers. All right. By the way, Elliott has not had a top 5 in his last 5 on the season, and he has only led 6 laps with 4 next-gen races at this track. Never won it. And Byron, he might be interesting only because he led 117 laps in a race last year, and then also led 122 laps in a race in 2022. So he's had at least one of those really good runs at this racetrack. And since he didn't lead, I don't think, any laps in March, maybe he's going to have a good run if that continues. Yeah. So
my biggest question with Byron really is just the lack of productivity. He started the season so strongly. As we got to the break, it kind of trailed off. So I still have questions there. Again, it's a chance for him to do a restart. But certainly of that bunch, I'd prefer Logano.
And he's driving a Chevy too.
Yeah.
So. All right. Out of this group, you got the 2 teammates there. Kozlowski 14, Buescher 16. You got Reddick 18, Gibbs 22. So I definitely would be interested, to tell you the truth, in... I think all of these drivers are not bad to keep an eye on. So I want to see how their numbers look, of course, after qualifying. But Reddick at 18-1, I think, is a really good play because how hot he was towards the end of the break. 8 top 10s in his last 9, 5 top 5s, and 2 runner-ups in his last 3. You are just as hot as you can be without a win. And he was 6th at New Hampshire, 10th at Phoenix, leading a combined 121 laps. So there's that. He was 10th this year, which was his best finish. So that's important to note. And he led 81 laps in this race last year from the pole. So there's, even though he doesn't have a good history here, his best races have been the last 2 races he's had here. He's red hot. You're getting 18-1. I think Reddick is definitely a good play because of that. And then again, Buescher, Kozlowski. By the way, Kozlowski was 20-1. If we would have recorded yesterday. Now he's down to 14. I don't like him at 14. I like him at 20. 14, I think I would wait for qualifying before I put money on him. But I like putting money on him at 20-1, excuse me. Keep in mind, he has not had a top 5 at this track since his 2020 win. when he led 192 laps in that race. He's had 4 Xfinity wins here, 2 Cup wins here. He does not have a top 5 in his last 7 in the Cup Series, so he's not really coming in hot either. But what you do like about the teammates is that Buescher's the defending champ. He's been strong since the next gen at Richmond, including leading 88 laps in the win last year. He was 2nd at Phoenix this year, 5th at New Hampshire this year. Keselowski, meanwhile, led 102 laps in this race last year, with Buescher winning this race, and he finished 6th. So that's why I think they're both into play. Gibbs, meanwhile, just 1 top 5 in his last 9 on the season. He was 3rd at Phoenix. He has a win in the Xfinity Series, but that really hasn't mattered as much now the longer we're going into his Cup career, because he hasn't won anything. So, I like the fact he's 22-1 and he's driving a Toyota. So I'll keep an eye on that. But anyway, I think all these drivers are in play.
Yeah, I think all of them make for compelling choices. Buescher probably stands out the most to me because it's a fall race at Richmond. The last 2 fall races was where he's had his most success. So he was 3rd in the fall of 2023. 2022, and then 2023 he was the winner from 26th spot, leading 88 laps. Like you said, Keselowski has a tendency to lead a lot of laps here, a past winner as well. Reddick has been so hot leading up to the break. I think he's going to come out swinging as well. Biggest question mark for me is Ty Gibbs, and not to say that he doesn't have the potential, because we all know he does. It's just a matter of he's only had 4 races here, just 1 top 10. So a little bit of question marks around him compared to the history of the other guys. But I think all 4 worthy choices. Buescher probably the one that stands out most to me just because of the fall aspect. The past couple seasons, those have been the best races for him at Richmond.
All right, now here, again, the odds are different from yesterday. Bowman is down to 22. He was 28 yesterday. I still don't like Bowman anyway, except the fact that I like the way he was racing towards the end of the break. And by the way, he would have had a much better result here in March, but he got stuck, I believe, on the pit when Kyle Busch brought out a caution, and it totally ruined his day. He was doing well. He was up front. Caution comes out, puts him in a bad spot. I think it might have put him down a lap or something like that, and he never got it back. So just keep that in mind. He has won here, typical Bowman fashion, leading 10 laps and winning the race. But anyway, he is down to 2022. Chastain is just in a bad rut. He has 2 top 5s on the year. That's how bad things have been. Meanwhile, he was 15th in March. I believe he started 3rd in that race, too. He has 1 top 5 in 11 appearances here. Even though he had a good run in his last 4 Xfinity races at Richmond, it has not translated, and he's just not racing well, even though the odds have dropped from 33 to 25, which I really don't know why. Same thing with Kyle. I don't know why he's dropping from 33 to 25. He has 6 wins here, yes. He's been a dominant racer here, yes, but he's led 2 laps since the next gen. So, and we know how things are going with him. Josh Berry. I took Josh Berry yesterday. I got him at 40-1. I was happy to get him at 40-1. I'm not so happy he's 25-1 now, but it's like, okay, the number's still high enough. And the reason is because of several things. He's raced twice in the Cup Series, 11th in March from the 30th position, and 2nd in this race last year, which is his best finish, obviously, and he was 30th. So just imagine if he can do a better job of starting better than 30th. Xfinity Series, 3 top 10s out of 4, 1 of those top 5s, led 63 laps from the 3rd position. He finished 3rd, which was his best finish, leading 63 laps in the race in the Xfinity Series last March. So a lot going for him, and throw in the fact that he was 3rd at New Hampshire. But let's keep in mind he does not have a top 15 in his last 4 races. That's why I'm a little bit, and it's Josh Berry. So I just prefer him at 40, but I wouldn't mind if you still wanted to go with him at 25.
Yeah, no way I'm touching Kyle Busch with the rut that he's been in. Chastain, it's been a rough season. I'm with you. I don't think he's going to make the playoffs. So it's between Bowman and Berry of this group. Bowman maybe a little bit of the edge just because of the fact that he was racing so well before we got to the break. But like you said, Josh Berry, this is a very good track for him. Kind of like Gibbs, though he's not got a ton of history to go on in this series. The 2nd place finish was when he was substituting for Chase Elliott. Yeah, he had an 11th place finish with Stuart Haas. He led 2 laps. So, Stuart Haas isn't Hendrick. Of course, it's not the number 9 car, so a little bit of a discount there. So probably give the edge to Bowman, but Barry's a pretty good choice. I would have rather had him where you got him at the 40-1.
And then one more at this range is Wallace at 35. And I think that he's definitely somebody to keep an eye on. And you're getting 35 still. And that's because in his last 4 races before the break, all of them in the top 15, 3 of them in the top 10, and 1 was 5th. So he's going through his best stretch of the season, it looks like. Even though he's never had a top 10 at this track in 12 finishes, there's that. But he led 80 laps in this race last year. Even though he did not have a good finish in March, I believe, or nothing great. Keep this in mind, though. In his first 8 races at Richmond, his average finish was 25.1. His last 4 average 15.0. And in his last Xfinity Series race way back in 2017, he finished 6th. And he has an average of 11.7 in 6 Xfinity Series races, which is pretty good for Bubba Wallace. So isn't that a bad track for Bubba? I would not be surprised if he was able to win a race at some point. And you're getting 35-1. As far as, and then they say a big gap to all the other long shots who are like over 100-1 or more. And out of all of those, I mean, really none of them, I think, stick out enough. The only ones that do for me would be just the fact that Gilliland has 2 top 10s in his last 3. Stenhouse has 4 top 12s in his last 6. And Gregson, he has an Xfinity Series win, very good numbers in Xfinity Series, and has 2 top 10s in his last 4. But other than that, this is not one of those weeks to take a super long shot.
Yep, I would agree. I think the last one, you probably, all the names that you threw out on the super long shots, very good ones, and perhaps maybe somebody that you want to take a flyer on from a fantasy standpoint. The most compelling one, certainly Bubba Wallace. He's been getting better at Richmond more recently. His best finish is a 12th, which he's done twice. 12th and 13th are his last 2 finishes at this track. And he led laps in each of his last 3, which are all the laps that he's led at Richmond. So he's improving at this track. He's in a Toyota. So I think of the deep long shots, Bubba Wallace is probably the clear one to go with.
All right, pick time. What are you gonna? What are your top 3 picks?
So my top pick, I'll go with Hamlin for the repeat because I think the odds are a bit better than Bell.
Okay.
I think it's kind of a coin flip for me between those two. My middle pick, let's go with. Let's switch it up a little bit. Let's go with a Ford, and we'll go with Logano for my middle pick.
Okay.
And we will put Bubba Wallace as my long shot.
All right. Yeah, I'm gonna go. I like it. We're different there. I'm gonna go Bell first, Reddick second, and since you take Wallace, I'll take Berry as my long shot. Long shot. All right. So again, I have no idea why this race is at 6:30. Maybe you can find out. You fans out there, but check us out on Prime Sports Network on Saturday for the starting lineup show, and our next show is next. Hopefully, we'll be back to Tuesday, and the next race is Michigan. So we have Michigan, and then the week after that, we get back to F1 with
Correct.
the Netherlands.
You got it.
And NASCAR that week is in Daytona on a Saturday night.
Finally, a Saturday night race versus a Sunday night race.
Yeah, whatever that's about. All right. So, again, just check out our starting lineup show. And it's always going to be, at least for now, it's always going to be just minutes after qualifying is over. Put everything together right away, and then boom, I'll put the video up on Prime Sports Network. I have no idea how I'm going to handle this when college football season starts, but I'll figure it out. So that's when we're going to have to really find out when the qualifying is, and then because I may not be able to do it right away because I'd be doing a post-game show on all season on the college football team, Penn State. So after every Penn State game, I'm going to be busy for about an hour and a half. So that might conflict, but I'll still be posting these reports. It just may not happen right after qualifying ends, but we'll remind everybody. All right, CJ, good to have you back. Good to be back. And we'll see how this goes. This should be an interesting restart to the 2024 season.
Sounds good.
All right. And thanks out there. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all that cool stuff. And we'll see you next time. And comments, too. Let us know. Well, next week, a little bit more time to check out from previous comments and questions and things like that from our viewers. We'll go over that on next week's show.